we were chatting just before we started, and you had mentioned the your history of relationships with Jews, going back to your childhood in Alabama and the influence of those relationships. And I would love you just to start by talking about that.
Um, thank you so much for the question. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, which at the time was the most segregated city in the country. And actually, the very first white people I ever encountered were Jewish people. Uh, and then my mother was an activist, had been involved in social justice struggles for a very long time. And so, therefore, the people she knew in Birmingham who were supporting Black struggles, the white people she knew were Jewish people. And so I grew up with this sense of closeness to Jewish traditions of social justice and of empathy and activism. Uh, Later I went to Elizabeth Irwin High School. The vast majority of people of my friends and the students there were Jewish. And I went to Brandeis University. So I can say that during my formative years, Jewish traditions of social justice were played a very important role in my education and in my sense of the importance of of generating solidarity. And I should also say that I was a communist. I was a member of the Communist Party. Uh, so, I still feel very close to those traditions and have been involved with Jewish Voice for Peace for a very long time.
Mhm. Um, but I want to ask you about of your how you came to understand and become aware of the Palestinian struggle. But one more question about what you were saying about the relationship with Jews. What do you think is the right way for us to think about the Jewish role in the civil rights movement without kind of painting too rosy or Disneyfied a picture of it, recognizing the power dynamics that were involved, recognizing that, of course, I'm sure not not all Jews in Birmingham were sympathetic to civil rights, and then, of course, tensions that emerged as the '60s, went on. How do you think we should think about this while recognizing that there was something valuable and important there without while recognizing the fact that Jews and blacks in the United States, of course, are very, very differently situated as it relates to American society and were back then.
Well, we always live with contradictions.
Mm,
And I don't think it is helpful to try to find a way out of those contradictions. Yes, I mean, I can tell you that more recently, I had a human rights prize, taken back, rescinded, as a consequence of criticism that came from the Jewish community
mm,
in Birmingham. Uh, we can't assume that it's possible to find our way out of those contradictions, but we try to make them productive. We try to recognize that we can't think in these universal terms about anything. And um, but I do think it's important to emphasize the historical role that Jewish activists have played in working class struggles, in the development of socialism, communism. I think about the Rosenbergs. I went to high school with the children of the Rosenbergs. And
mm,
I've been
mm,
involved with the Rosenberg Foundation for many decades. Uh, so when I talk about um,
Would-
progressive Jews. I mean, precisely that. And I would say the same thing about Black people, that not all Black people are anti-racist in the way that I would like to see. I mean, that's the way the world unfolds. We use concepts that enable us to think, but at the same time, we have to recognize that those concepts never fully grasp the the contradictions
mm.
that constitute our social realities.
Yes, yes. And even if someone, if a group has certain common historical experiences, those can be interpreted in radically different ways. Um,
Absolutely.
I would love to hear about when it was that you first encountered Palestinians and became aware of the Palestinian experience and the Palestinian struggle.
Well, I've thought about this, of course, given the horrendous situation we're confronted with today in terms of the genocide directed against Palestinian people. And, and I think it was probably when I was a college student at Brandeis University. I'm thinking about my roommate during my uh, first year in college, who was Jewish, as were the vast majority of students at Brandeis. And I'm so thankful to her that she introduced me to the struggle of the Palestinians.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I actually um, began to recognize early on uh, that what I had heard about as the progressive state of Israel. Because as a socialist, of course, I knew all about the kibbutzim. I had friends who had traveled to Israel and participated, and then there was that whole, socialist representation of the possibilities that were indicated by the founding of the state of Israel. But my roommate, my first year, told me about the ways in which Palestinian people were being treated, and the evictions and the violence inflicted upon them. So I think that was my first recognition that there was something not quite right in the representational practices. And also, this was also on the left, I should say, uh, because in the very early days, Israel was embraced as a beacon of socialism as well.
Yes, I would love to ask you about that, right? Because Israel really was in the, in those early decades, even into the 60s and in part of 70s, that in some ways a cause of the left,
Yes.
and I'm curious if you can talk about the internal debates that you were part of on the left about Israel and Palestine in that period when you coming out of college and then into your later education and activism.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the 60s, of course. I graduated from Brandeis in 1965. And I think that I became aware of the importance of recognizing the settler colonial character of the state of Israel when I was a graduate student in Germany.
Hmm.
I left Brandeis. Well, I should say that my mentor, who was responsible for my deciding to study in Germany, was Herbert Marcuse,
Hmm.
who was, of course, Jewish, and I spent several years. studying in Germany, and I was there in 1967 during the 67 war. And I think it was in my involvement with the socialist student organization in Frankfurt that allowed me to develop a more complex awareness of what was happening. And that was, I think, the first time that I mean, I had associated myself with Palestinian solidarity, but this was the first time in which I had the opportunity to, as an activist, to um, try to better understand uh, how important Palestine solidarity was to global social justice. And I've always considered myself an internationalist from, um, I suppose, from the time I was in high school. I've felt these impulses to find, larger causes within which to develop my own political social identity. And so, this was the cause of Palestine has been perhaps one of the most, formative causes that I have embraced. Uh, and you know, it really hurts me to think about how people who are brought up to think in such small terms that they cannot see beyond uh, their their own community, that they could not embrace what is happening in other parts of the world. Uh, I think that, as I said, as a very young activist, I learned how to do this, and I'm so fortunate that from the time I was a teenager, internationalism became a way in which I embraced the world.